Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar. Tonight's webinar is the Personal Insight Questions. My name is Dustin Noji, and I'm the Director of Enrollment Management Communications here at UC Merced, and I'll be serving as your moderator for today's presentation. Just a few housekeeping items. If this is the first webinar you've attended, awesome. We're glad to have you. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a couple different settings that we wanted to mention to you. During the presentation, if you have an issue with the audio, on the bottom left-hand side, you'll see an audio settings button. You can select that and adjust your audio so you can hear the speakers appropriately. Just so you know, we'll be recording tonight's session. We'll make it available to everyone who's signed up in 3 to 5 business days on our website. Another thing for you to note is that we'll be taking questions at the very end of tonight's presentation. So if you can, please hold on to those questions. We'll be staying online till about 7 o'clock tonight. For any questions that we're not able to answer, we'll give you our contact information and you can email those questions to us directly. If at any time you have issues with your audio or video, you're welcome to message me using the chat function, and I'll see if I can assist you. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to tonight's speaker. Tonight's speaker is Juan Carlos Lopez. He's our Inland Empire and East LA Regional Admissions Representative, and he's here tonight to give you tips and information on how to complete your personal insight questions. So we'd like to welcome Juan Carlos to go ahead and start his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well today. Hope you're not overexcited about the application season or given that. As mentioned to you, my name is Juan Carlos Lopez. I'm here to present you tonight in regards to the personal insight questions. My goal is to make sure that you get the information so that you'll be able to write your answers in a good way and avoid a lot of the jargon that's out there. So the purpose of this personal insight questions is for the University of California admissions process. What to do and what not to do and important dates. That's going to be very important. And we want to make sure that we cover as much as we can. And if you do have questions, by all means do ask, but hold on to the end so that we'll be able to answer your questions appropriately and in a timely manner. So let's get started and let's move on. So the personal insight questions are designed to help us understand who the applicant is to the University of California. We have included 8 questions that are there for you. These questions we ask you that you answer at least 4. For the most part, a lot of times students answer all 8, which is encouraged, because what you're going to find out is that when students begin to answer all 8 questions, they come up with some answers that they never thought that would be a benefit to them. So in selecting 4 out of those 8 questions gives you a better perspective as to who you are as an individual. Each question needs a response of 350 words. And then also make sure that you think about this for those of you who are transfer students. You need to answer one of them that it's required when you look at the application itself. Okay, so think about that. All right. So some of the factors that we look for in the University of California for looking at students as to what they bring to the table, apart from the GPA and test scores, we like to think of the individual that is more than just that. We like to think that the individual can bring other aspects to the application. For example, the strength of courses. A lot of you have been introduced, especially those who are in high school, have been told throughout your high school career that the A through G is an important factor, which they are. At the same time, you also want to make sure that the student has taken advantage of those A through G factors. For example, if the student has the opportunity to have an honors or an AP course, that's going to be surely an important factor in regards to looking at the applicant as to challenging themselves through the whole process. At the same time, be mindful of this. When the university looks at you as the applicant, we look at you as the individual, not necessarily comparing you to the other students within your school, let alone with other students in the community. At the same time, we want to make sure that your senior year is a good one in regards to making sure that you take some good quality courses, not necessarily just taking a whatever course in that sense. More times than not, we find students that just because they completed the A through G throughout their career in high school, or even the 10th, 11th grade, they took a lot of the honors and AP course. Sometimes they feel like their senior year should be a relaxed time. And we understand that, and that's perfectly fine. However, we also like to see that individuals challenge themselves to continue on to the process of being admitted to the campuses as well. Apart from all that, we also look at other aspects. What have you done internally, externally, activities? Are you involved in sports? Are you involved in community service? Are you involved in clubs or organizations within your school? And keep in mind that what makes the individual whole is those aspects. Not only are we looking at the individual as the academic part, but we're also like the individual that he or she has a balance bringing into the application. And that's what we'd like to tell students. The balance of an individual applying to the University of California is a good balance, because in turns, we want to make sure that you are successful on any given campus that you're applying to, specifically with that, okay? All right. For transfer students, definitely you're going to think about the completion of your courses. You're in a different aspect of your career in as far as your career in the school is. So our opportunities to give you is to think about the courses you've taken, the majors that you selected. Have you completed your AA? All those things are going to become part of that. Did you complete the breadth of courses? Did you do any extras? For example, some of the majors might require some courses that not necessarily recommended, but not necessarily required, but they're recommended for you to take as a supplemental to your breadth of courses. Along with that, you were looking at your prep courses for your transferring over to the university. Okay, but at the same time, academics is as important as it is. We also look at anything special that you've done outside of the classroom. Why? Again, going back to the same concept that I've mentioned, that we're looking for that well-balanced individual that brings a lot of stuff to them, because your experiences do matter in regards to our university. Your experiences do matter, and that's what makes you a very valuable student to the University of California. Okay, so the purpose of the insight questions is to provide us information about the individual themselves. As we look at the application, yes, we look at the academics, we look at the numbers. That is surely an important factor. But because the University of California does not interview, nor do we ask for letters of recommendations, it is important for us to understand who the applicant is. And that's going to be something that gives us a better indication whether the student is doing more than just academics. And again, going back to the idea of a well-balanced individual or a holistic aspect of the individual is very important for us. Providing them the opportunity to be admitted to the University of California. And again, just for the insight questions, just to give you a heads up on that, is for you to start thinking about how these insight questions bring out the best out of you, okay? And what is the insight question tells us about you are going to be important. So not knowing just knowing the facts about your numbers in regards to your SATs or your grades, we like to think that the University of California does a better job in looking at the individual as to what they bring as far as the experiences are concerned, okay? So for transfer students, the required question is this: please describe how you prepare for your intended major, including your readiness to succeed in your upper division courses once you enroll at the university. As you already know, the transfer students, your requirements are a little bit different than that of first years or incoming freshmen. For this purpose only, it's because we know that you have managed to take care of your business at the community college, but we also ask a little bit more from you, okay? So whatever major you've decided to take on, we want to make sure they understand the reasons why you chose that major and how taking those courses prepare you for you to succeed in the other aspects when you transfer to the university. Those become very important because taking those classes at the community college is going to set the base for you to be successful at the next level. And we want to know how you've managed to do that in order to continue on to the next level of your education, okay? So the personal insight questions, they go as follow. Describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time, okay? Now, one of the things that a lot of students always ask about leadership is that, well, I can't really be a leader or take a leadership role at the high school because I have to run home and take care of my brothers and sisters. And that's perfectly fine. Leadership doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a leader at your campus. You can be a leader off campus or external, because a lot of students do have a life. A lot of students do have other responsibilities. For example, some students in some situations, they can't really get involved in a lot of activities at school because of the fact that they maybe have their parents Why work all the time? And by doing so, the responsibility is put on them. So one way to look at this is this: is the individual taking on the responsibilities of being like the father figure or the parent figure at home? That becomes part of the leadership role. In some instances as well, some students also do a lot of things at home by providing their parents with basically maybe writing a lot of their bills or using the internet to help their parents move along. And that's something that students have been forced on as far as leadership, and that should come out and explain to us that this is a part of the leadership that they've actually attained. So to end it all in regards to that leadership, don't stick it to the experiences you've had in high school or at the community college. Go into the idea that there's more to that. Maybe you are a Boy Scout, that you became a leader outside of the high school. Maybe you are some leader at the church. These things are very important for us to know. So don't just frame it to your experiences at the school, but also think about the outside, what you've done outside of the school, okay? Now, the second question is asking, every person has a creative side, and it can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I'm not very creative in the art. You don't have to be that. You could have many creative sides in regards to your thinking, how you view the world, how you basically maybe see yourself as a person who is very creative. Maybe you like cooking. Maybe you like creating or constructing stuff. And maybe this is something you do on your own. Maybe you play in a band, okay? And maybe you're the type of person in the band who does a lot of good things within the band. So think about that. Again, what we try to make you see is it's not necessarily just stick to what you do in school. Think about what you do outside of school, which becomes an important factor. And it's imperative for you to know that there are no constraints in your creative side, okay? There is more to that than just being creative, not necessarily attached to any high school experience that you may have. Again, it could be outside of the school, okay? What would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How would you develop and demonstrate the talent over time? Now, going back to the creative question, these two kind of overlap in a sense. If you think about, for example, if you are someone who makes funny noises with your mouth, that's perfectly fine. Or someone who's just basically picked up an instrument and started playing just because you were interested in playing, and not necessarily part of an organized band. And these are something that you do. Or maybe you are good in constructing stuff, something that people that might not know. Or put it this way, my nephew, who basically does tricks with his yo-yos, he actually creates YouTube videos using that, and that's his skill for him. And he explained this in such a way that he says using these yo-yos and actually doing tricks with these yo-yos there's a lot of skill behind it, and a lot of math and physics that go behind that. And that's something that not everybody could do. I actually couldn't do anything like that, any tricks with yo-yos. So think about that. One of the aspects too that you want to think about is looking at question number 4. Describe how you have taken advantage of significant educational opportunities or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. Now, you could see this as a 2-part question, because a lot of you, for example, would say, well, I don't know if I really have taken advantage of any of our programs. For example, a lot of you either at the community college or at high school might take advantage of the TRIO program that involved the talent search or the upper bound. Those are the programs that basically could be interjoined with both high school and community college. Or maybe you were part of the AVID in high school, okay? Or maybe other programs at the school. It could be those kinds of programs. But sometimes themselves, you could take advantage of, some of you might write about, I've taken advantage of my AP or honors courses, okay? And maybe some of you were at one point in your lives where you basically were afraid to take the honors and AP courses because of the fact that to you, it seemed like it was a little bit more difficult, but you managed to challenge yourself. And that's something that a lot of you might want to think about, how you've overcome those fears of taking those honors or the AP courses. That's one thing. Or maybe if you're in community college, you are going through the phase of learning how to be a college student and learning how to study and how to tackle a lot of the balance between your home life with your academics. Those are very significant to us in understanding where you really come from as a student. Very important, okay? The fifth question, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Now, we see a lot of students, for the most part, when you think about the admissions process for the University of California, yes, we do tell you that your sophomore and junior year are the most important years in regards to the GPA calculations for admissions. Okay, that's one factor. We don't necessarily look at your freshman year, but we do look at your freshman year in regards to whether you completed UA through G for high school students. Okay, but a lot of times when students start high school, it's that transition from middle school into the high school, or even students who have graduated from high school got into community college, that transition from those aspects. We want to make sure that you understand a couple of things. We understand that there's a lot of factors that might come that you're faced with, that sometimes that you are challenged to make sure that you understand what you need to do. For example, a high school student, when he comes to high school, he or she is in a new environment and trying to figure things out, as well as a community college student. And many times or another, they're not told exactly what the role is as a high school student. And sometimes they misstep in regards to understanding that they have to do well in order to be able to move into the next level of courses, specifically if they want to go into the honors or the AP courses. So that might be a challenge that you might have in regards to your career, or maybe not, or maybe even taking honors or AP courses, going back to the question before. This could be also another factor in regards to that, the challenge that you took and how you faced that challenge and you overcame that challenge. Also with students who were maybe taking science courses in community college and basically understanding the challenge behind that as well. Again, going back to the same factors, understanding your challenges is very crucial for us and understanding who you are as an individual, okay? Question number 6 is, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you further this interest inside or outside of the classroom. Now, a lot of times, a lot of students, in many ways or another, when they look at this question, they try to think about subjects or courses that they've never really intended to take, or even in college. If you're at the community college, you take maybe a philosophy class, or maybe you take a course or a history class that you never really thought you would be taking, but you take it because of interest. And then you come to find out that that subject you really find a lot of interest in and inspires to dig into more and to take more classes in that aspect, okay? Now, a lot of students, when they look at this question, sometimes they don't really understand how the question is being asked or what is asked from them. Because in the past, we had students who've answered the question in regards to this and saying that my best subject who has inspired me is PE. Well, it is not up to us to determine whether that is the wrong or right answer. It is to us to determine how you answer that question, okay? That's very important. Because a lot of students who've answered that question in that way, they might say, you know what, PE because of the fact that I play sports for my high school, or I play sports in general, and it keeps me motivated and focused in the task at hand, okay? Again, there is no wrong or right answer in these questions. It's more of how you present yourself in explaining and being clear on how you answer these questions. We're not looking for you to be the best writer in the world. We want you to stay away from all the fluff that comes with writing. And we understand also that because you've been structured or been trained in a certain way how to write, it is important for you to know that here it's more like a freelance kind of a thing to answer these questions. Again, we're not looking to see whether you know how to use the thesaurus. We're not looking to see whether you know how to use the dictionary or let alone how to use fancy words. We're looking to see how you express yourself in answering these questions. And many of you, when you answer a question, you tend to set it up and then go in and answer the question. Just dig in, answer the question directly. These questions are designed, again, to remind you, are designed to help us understand who the candidate is who's applying to our campus. So be mindful of those kinds of things, okay? Now, question number 7, what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? Going back to the same questions that either leadership, and remember, if you look at these questions, if you kind of notice, a lot of these questions do overlap, and that's okay. Again, it is very important that you understand that. For me, when I talk to students, I always encourage them to answer all 8 questions, because they're going to find out that by answering all questions, there's some questions they never really thought about that probably makes them look a little bit better in regards to who they are, and we have a better understanding as to who they are as a student who's applying to our campus. Okay. So question number 7 is what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? Now, again, maybe you might be the type of person that ran for student body president. Maybe you're the type of person who started an organization at your campus. Okay. And that's perfectly fine. Or again, maybe you're the type of person that likes to be involved in your community and make changes and try to help out. Maybe a lot of you helped out during the elections this past season, and that's okay. Those are kinds of things, again, it's what makes an individual an individual that brings a lot of experiences to our university. At the end of the day is that if you're involved as a student in your community or involved in your school, we expect you to bring those experiences to the university, which, by the way, will make your experience a lot better in regards to being at the university as well. So keep in mind, again, when looking at these questions, and we keep reminding you, it's all about you. It's all about what your experiences you bring to the table and make us understand who you are as a student who's applying to our campus. Now, question number 8 kind of is a broad question in a sense, because beyond what we already know about you, is asking you beyond what was already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? Basically, what makes you a good candidate for the University of California? As people, we're always afraid to brag about ourselves. It is not bad to brag about yourself. This is where you actually get to brag about yourself, and that's okay. Going back to the idea that, again, the more we know about you, the better it is for us to understand who the applicant is. And bragging about ourselves is okay. Don't worry about that. Because what happens is that if you really look at these questions, these are questions that are going to help you along the way. For example, if you go for a job interview, maybe the interviewer is going to ask you, tell me about yourself. And then for the most part, I think a lot of you will answer, well, what do you want to know? When somebody gives you that question, the best thing to do is go ahead and start telling about whatever you think is important about yourself. And so question number 8 basically hits that point, okay? What makes you a good candidate for the University of California? Once again, it's okay to have that ego. It's okay to brag. But then again, all the insight question, it's all about bragging about yourself, okay? And be mindful, again, going back to the idea that the University of California, we don't interview, nor do we ask for letters of recommendations, but this is the best way for us to know who you are as a candidate or the applicant who's applying to our campus. And by question number 8 is giving you a kind of a door for us for you to share what you think, not me, not your counselor, not your parents. And that's another thing too. If you ask your parents about this question, ask them this question: what makes you a good candidate for the University of California? I almost guarantee that your parents are going to give you so much information that you can actually use to answer this question. Okay. What we basically want to is basically for you to answer these questions. Stay away from the fluff. We don't want to hear something to the effect of, on the day I was born, there was thunder and lightning, so my parents tell me. No, none of that stuff. What we want to hear from you is to be honest and be sincere of what you've answered in these questions. Okay. Now, there is an additional comment or additional information that you could, as your comments in the application. Okay. This is where you get a chance to basically write about what you think it's important that we should know about you. Okay. Here, you describe anything else that you have not had the opportunity to include elsewhere on your application. Okay. Utilize that. More times than not, students always miss that aspect, because this is where we give you a free part where you basically get to write about anything you feel that is imperative to us knowing who you are. And that's going to be really, really, really important. A lot of students, what they've done in the past, I'm not saying that you should do it, have included maybe poetry, maybe, that's up to you. But so again, this is where you really get to write about anything you feel that you might not have included in the application. Maybe you want to include maybe a struggle that you've had. Maybe you want to include something that you've done great. For example, I had a student that one time the student told me, well, I really don't have any bad things in my life. And I said, well, what do you do on any given day? Well, the student was telling me that they basically travel from San Diego every other day, from San Diego to LA to audition. And while traveling from San Diego to LA, she would work on her homework, work on her projects in the car. And that was 3 times a week. That's an aspect of life that nobody really knew that she was doing. And if she writes that, that clarifies a lot of things for us in regards to who the candidate is and applying to. Okay. Now going back to the additional comment box, here you want to make sure that you write anything that you feel is important for us that you left out of the application. So especially specifically in your academic history. Okay. Be mindful too that the application itself, what you're putting on there, it's all self-reported. And everything you put on there is basically not checked until we basically look at your application and we ask for additional information. Okay? So think about those things. So at the end of the day, when you look at the insight questions, they're basically designed to make us understand who you are as the individual who's applying to the University of California. Our job is to look at you not necessarily as a number, but to look at you as a person. And by doing so, these insight questions gives us a better idea as to who you are and who the student is applying to our campus. Okay? All right. All right. The do's and don'ts. Going back to the idea that a lot of you, when you are told that that you should write a certain way in English class, that you have to set it up, you have to have an introduction, a body, and conclusion. These insight questions don't do that, okay? What we want you to do is be as sincere as honest with what you put on the application, is to write about you yourself. We don't want you to write in the third person. We don't want you to write including your family, your counselors, your parents. They're not applying to the university, you are. So in better ways, avoid quotations. We don't want to hear about some poet that wrote something great that you think you should use that. Don't use cliches. Don't generalize. Creative writing is okay, but at the same time, when I tell students to, when you look at the insight questions, it's okay to write slang as long as it's clear and to the point and it's clean, okay? Stay away from flowery or excessive language. Again, for the most part, using the thesaurus is okay, but not in this act, not in these questions. Okay, avoid repetition. Okay, and avoid inappropriate humor. Stay positive when writing about your experiences. Stay away from the negatives, because we want to know. Again, you want to make sure that you give us a true sense of who you are as an individual that is applying to our campus. Okay. All right. What to do? Make sure you answer the question. Don't veer off from it. Again, don't give us a lot of fluff. Stick to the point. Okay. Again, if you think about this, as one of my colleagues suggested, think of answering these questions as writing in your diary or journal. Okay. I know maybe some of you don't do that, but think about that. You're writing it to that particular audience and making sure that you are honest and confident what you answer that. Be clear, focused, organized, specific, but do proofread and do get feedback from counselors or teachers or friends or even family. Again, when you read your answers, make sure that they're clear, and then there's not a lot of fluff. There's a lot of wording in your answers. Just get to the point, and just tell your story. Believe in yourself, because that becomes an important part of the whole experience as you who's applying to our campuses. Okay. All right. So now from that now you already know that these questions are designed to help us understand who the applicant is. But here's the thing. Okay. The application opened up back in August, and some of you already worked on it. Okay. But you do have to the end of this month. It doesn't matter where you were the first one in November 1st to submit, as long as you get it in before midnight of this month. For the most part, we generally try to tell you that try to get in your application the week before Thanksgiving, being this weekend, before you go off and enjoy yourself or enjoy your turkey. Okay? But if you think about applying in the springtime, think about that. You will be doing that in July 1st of next year, but don't worry about that. Now, when looking at the application itself, think of it this way. It is not necessarily the Common App. It's one application for all the UCs. Okay? Your job is to look at all 9 campuses and determine where you want your application to go to. By doing so, you click on each box that you want your information to go to. Okay? Once that's done, for every campus that you select, it's $70. Okay. Now for that, some of you will probably apply for a fee waiver, and you'll be eligible to receive that fee waiver. If you do, please utilize all 4 campuses. It's like me giving you $1,000 and you only use one and you throw the rest away. So don't do that. Try to utilize all of these. And for your information, if you don't already know, the website for that is universityofcalifornia.edu/apply. Okay, so keep that in mind. Once you submit your application, it is recommended you do print a copy of your application. Also, one of the things that I want to make sure that you understand also is that once you apply to the university, it is important for you also to create an account with the university you apply to. Let me tell you the reasons why. Many times than not, when the university tries to get in touch with you, they try to do it via email. A lot of times that email that we sent you usually lands in your spam box. Okay, many times than not, a lot of you would not look at your spam box. You probably delete what's in there and you never get the message. But if you create an account with the university, basically everything's centralized. So basically what you do is you go to for University of California, Merced, you go onto our website and you basically create an account there. Okay, by doing so, everything's going to be on there, and all the information, if we need additional information, guess what? It's going to go on there. And you have everything already organized and centralized. At the same time, as you go through the process and as you apply, make sure that you also apply for financial aid. If you're still in the process of taking your exams, be mindful that you still have to the end of December to take care of all of your exams. If you're applying, don't worry about this. Just make sure that you indicated on your application that you'll be taking your exams in December. Okay, don't worry whether they're in or not. Just make sure that you notify us as soon as possible. Also, at the same time, when you apply or you register for the SAT or the SAT, it basically tells you on there where you want your test scores to be sent as well. Okay, if not, make sure that you order your test scores reports. If anything changes in your application, make sure you update your application, and then at the end of the day, you have to just wait for our admissions decision. And if you create a portal, guess what? That's where your decisions will be at. Okay, so think about those things. Okay, I want to thank you very much for attending tonight, and I hope that that you have a lot of good questions. We're here to answer any of your questions. All right, so let me look at some of the questions that are being asked. Somebody asked, you should only focus on one aspect of the essay. Please don't call them essays. They're not essays. Essays are not, it's not on assignment either. They're questions for you. Like somebody mentioned, one of my colleagues mentioned earlier, it's like writing in your journal or your diary. Okay, it's not an essay because we're not necessarily grading that as an essay. We're looking at it as an answer to your life, or basically a window to your life. Okay. All right, so let me see. I'm going to answer this one. If I got a low score on SAT, but better score on the SAT, can I just send SAT scores to alleviate the cost for sending the test scores? Yes, you may. Yes, you may. Be mindful, though, that whether you take both the SAT or the SAT, if you submit both of the scores, we'll look at the high score for your benefit. So be mindful of that. But if you feel like you just want to send one score, that's still fine. Okay. Now, there's a question out here that says, if I fail math class this semester, will I be denied? Well, that is something that you have to basically tell us which class it was, and was it essential to your success. We prefer that you don't have any D grades or have anything lower than the C in your senior year, because that will affect your admissions. At this point, we don't have an answer for that, but be mindful you have not been denied. You just think about this, that you have to still complete that course in a good grade. But the best part about that is that you'll have to the end of your senior year to finish that. Okay, so keep that in mind. The question is, do you create an account for each of the UC campuses we apply? Yes, you do. Okay, because every campus has their own format. And not only that, be mindful too that every campus will give you an award letter for your financial aid as well. So every campus will give you that as well. Okay, and let's see, there's a question here. I have submitted my UC application to 2 UCs, including Merced. Should I be receiving an email regarding creating an account? You will be receiving an email from our campus to create an account. You will. As soon as, we're not doing anything with the applications right now until we get all the applications in, then we start sending the message out to the students that it's been received. For the additional comment section, there's a question here. for the additional comments sections, can we also describe any extracurricular activities that we couldn't add in your application? You have the right to do so. It's pretty much of a freelance on the additional comments. You can write anything you feel that we should know about you. Okay. All right. Make sure that you ask your questions in the Q&A module. We want to make sure that we answer those. Let's see. The question is asked, it says, what is it typically added in the additional comments section? Okay. Okay, I'm going to answer live. Okay, so again, going back to the individual who has extracurricular activities, maybe they want to write about their experiences in regards to maybe clubs that they were involved with. Maybe they had a challenge in their lives outside of the classroom, and that's perfectly fine. Okay. Now the question is here. I'm going to answer it live. What is an SAT score that UC Merced accepts? I got a 1040, just below average. Maybe it's not good enough. Well, be mindful that the University of California, when you take your SAT, we average that with your GPA. So we take your SAT score or your ACT score, and we look at your GPA, and we find the median between those two. There's no such thing as a bad score, but we do prefer that you have a high score to be competitive enough to be considered for admissions. Okay, so be mindful of that. Now, Glenn is asking, I'm going to answer live. Where'd it go? What is typically added in additional comments, which I already answered that, Glenn. Any challenges you feel like it's important for us to know for you, what you think it's important? Okay, it's not necessarily for me to tell you what additional comments you should put on there. Okay, now there's another question. The question is this: when do you start reviewing applications? As soon as the applications come in at the end of November, then for the most part, a lot of the campuses go into training mode, and then we start evaluating applications. This is why we have all the way to March to make sure that we complete all of our applications. They're supposed to be done by March, so you get your answer by then. So be mindful of that. Another question, I want to answer it live. I went on an overnight diversity and university trip across the country, and I want to include this by using the 8th question. How should I go about it? I think you should use this in the additional comments because you have 550 words to play with, because I imagine that this experience, you doing this overnight diversity trip, has given you more of an experience. So what I would do, if I were you, I would use that in the additional comments because you have 550 words. As in the 8th question, you'll be constrained to 350 words. Now, but if you do want to use it in the 8th question, think about how that program has set you apart from the rest. Now, for example, in that question itself, for the last question, what sets you apart? We do have students who have also traveled around the world, and that basically not a lot of students get that opportunity to do that. So I would consider that as well in that aspect. Okay. Ibrahim asks, I'm gonna ask live. Oops, where'd it go? Is it fine if I have around 250 words for a personal statement? We try to encourage you to try to have at least 250, but that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about that. Okay, so let's see. All right, trying to read as fast as I can. Let's see. Question is asked: if we didn't receive a good score on ACT score subject test, can we use score choice to send in only to the subject test that we want to send in? Only want to send in USH and biology subject. I know that they are required, but I'd rather not send in bad scores. It'll be important for you if you do take subject test scores. It is best for us to see everything. Again, that makes you a very competitive individual for admissions, and that also you gone beyond the call of duty in regards to that. Okay, so I'm gonna answer this live. Would my application be immediately thrown out if I have under average stats 3.0 writing? Not necessarily. What we do basically, all applicants apply to the University of California. We want to make sure that we look at every individual because that's what we do. So no, you're not thrown out just because of that. Okay. All right. Question. This is a good one. Sophie's asking, what is a common mistake you see in applications, personal insight questions? Perfect. Again, Students spend a lot of time setting up their answer. Students don't get their answers proofread. They're not clear on their message. They use a lot of wording and they don't get to the point. And times that they run out of space that they don't know what to do with that. So make sure that you constrain your answer to the questions that's being asked and stay within that. Okay? All right. Let's see. Question, can we talk about multiple things in additional comments or just one? That is up to you. Most students like to talk about more than just that. So that's important because maybe you are a multi-talented individual. You want to do that. Or maybe something, you might be involved in multiple sports or multiple clubs. You might want to do that. But also keep in mind that you want to make sure that you frame it in a way that you're going to be covering all these aspects of that. That is fine. Okay. Again, the additional comments for you to freelance and to do as much as you can there. Okay. Karina's asking, and I'm going to ask live. I'm not applying to highly competitive schools. I qualify for the GPA because I have a 4.0, but on ACT and ACT, I fall behind by a lot. Not dramatically, but not, I didn't fit the category. Should I talk about it? I don't understand how having a 4.0 makes you less competitive as an individual. If you remember, Karina, I mentioned to you earlier that we do take your SAT score or your SAT score and we average it out with your GPA. Again, our job is to make sure that we look at every individual and give you opportunities, because keep in mind that here as UC Merced, we look at you holistically. Not only do we look at your academics, we look at the other stuff that you bring to the table. And that's important for us. So be mindful of those kinds of things. Okay? Hope I answered that question. There's a question here. I'm going to answer live. Many of my essays highlight a similar theme about myself. Is it okay, or should I change my essay to be very different? Again, they're not essays. Be mindful of that. It's how you answer the question. And if you find a central theme in regards to your essays, maybe you should take a different point of view in regards to how that's going to be seen as you, the person who's applying to the campus. But if you have a central theme around it, that's perfectly okay. We're not gonna hurt you by that. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm gonna answer this question live by Angelina. Where can I find the UC application fee waiver in the online application? Is it after the insight questions? Okay, so the fee waiver comes at the end of the application. So basically what you're gonna go through the whole application itself. You're gonna apply, you're gonna fill out your application, and towards the end, you're gonna be asked, do you wanna apply for a fee waiver? And you go in and fill out the information that is required from there. And then from there, it'll either approve you or not. So be mindful of that. That's where you're gonna find your fee waiver. So the fee waiver is at the end of that. Okay, so think about those kinds of things. All right. Okay, let me see. The question is basically here is, how are supplemental applications reviewed? If a UC campus is asking for a supplemental review, those are usually turned in by the beginning of the year, not at the time of the application. So basically that would be an added feature or an added part to your application. And whatever questions they're asking you, they're going to be pulled to those campuses that are asking for those supplemental applications review. Okay, so not everybody does a supplemental review, so be mindful of that. Okay, maybe that's the question you might want to ask a campus that asks for those supplemental review, how they look at those kinds of things. Okay, so keep that in mind. The question is here live from Deborah. Are there certain qualities you look for in PIQs? There are no qualities. They're basically, it is you who's answered the questions. Honesty, you're truthful about what you answer, and you're being sincere about your answers. There's no such things that we're looking whether you're a good writer or not. We're looking to see whether you're clear on your answer and how those answers give you a human factor to the application. Okay, all right. Danielle Soto is asking, I'm going to answer live. What does Merced look for in insight questions? Once again, going back to the idea, is that we're not necessarily looking for any particular. We're looking for you to have answered the question. We're looking for you to be as honest as possible on that question. We're looking for you to be sincere in answering those questions. Okay? Think about those kinds of things. We're not necessarily looking for X, Y, and Z's. We're looking for you to be as honest as possible when answering these questions. Okay. Hannah's asking, will we be getting a recording of this webinar later? That's a good question. I don't know if this is available to you. This is something that maybe I'll get back to you on that question. That's a good question. Okay. Amy is asking, oh yes, the answer is yes. Thank you, Dustin, for that. The answer is yes, you will be getting that later on. Okay. Elizabeth Johnson's asking, let me see, okay. Let's see, I'm gonna answer this question. How can I write about my leadership? I have multiple programs and I advise to write only 2. Should I include the rest of at the end or leave only 2? That's a good question. As I mentioned to you, a lot of you have a lot of experience in being a leader. Why don't you encompass your leadership in all of your efforts in regards to your programs that you run or advise, and how that leadership has made you a little stronger in how to be diplomatic in regards to that. So think about those kinds of things. You can usually, yes, you can use your last additional comments to include all this information if you wanted to. But I think this is a good place for you to start thinking about how your leadership, if you want to focus on that, is think about how your leadership role has made you a stronger individual, has made you a diplomatic to deal with people. That is surely kind of be good for you to think about those things. You don't have to mention every aspect of all the clubs and organizations that you run. Think about the leadership that you have instilled or the leadership that you have to run these programs. That's going to be a good thing to do. Again, you don't have to mention all of the programs. You could write about your leadership on running those programs. Okay. Kenneth is asking, is basically, if I want to discuss more about a specific insight question, is it okay to write my response in question 8? If it's appropriate, sure, why not? Think about question number 8 is asking you to tell us about how, what makes you a good candidate for the University of California. So whether that's going to continue on to that, then so be it. But think about the question itself. Do answer the question. Don't veer from that. Okay. Those are the questions. Okay. All right. Levi is asking, I want to ask, is it okay if 2 questions have a central idea such as sport? One is for how I overcame a challenge between balancing time with sports and academics, and the other is explaining how my sport is my greatest talent and development. Sure, you could do that. You could do that. For example, let's say you want to be the captain of the soccer team, and you practiced very hard to be part of that soccer team, to be captain of the soccer team, and eventually you got it. That's perfectly fine. Excuse me. That's perfectly fine. Yes, you can. Okay. There's a question here. I have answered 3 out of the 4 required personal insight questions, but I'm having a hard time picking a 4th. Do you have any advice for me? Well, how would I put this? I have answered required personal insight. Do you have any suggestions? Think about the questions that you have in front of you and select, and this is why it's important that you've answered at least, and try to answer all 8 of them, because you're going to find out that there's more to you just picking out 3 and answering them. I almost guarantee you that there's other things that you've done that's going to help you in the long run. And answering the 4th question is something that you have to think about what you've done. I don't know which 3 you've answered, but think about the 3 ones you answer, and think about what else have you done. Are there programs involved? Are there certain subjects? Do you have a talent? That could be some of them. So I don't know how to advise you in regards to that. You just have to kind of look at which questions are actually good for you. Okay. Amy's asking if the challenge for they're not prompts. If the challenge for prompt 5 hasn't directly affected your academic performance, but has rather influenced a career choice, is that okay? Now, so the question number 5 is asking you a certain thing about how it's influenced. So if it's influenced your choice of career, why not? But make sure that you spin it in a way that you've answered the question. Okay, Amy? So think about that. The next question, we'll answer live. After we apply to the campuses on the UC system, is that when we create the specific campus account, or when do you create an account? There's two ways of doing it. The university you apply to, they'll send you an email to create an account, okay? Or basically you can go on yourself and create that account if you wanted to do it, okay? You can do that, but a lot of times when you receive an email from the University of California, it's basically inviting you that your application has been turned in, so therefore he'll go ahead and create an account with the university. So think about that, okay? Nashka, or Nashha, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. What is the average amount of time that people take to finish their personal insight questions? That is certainly personal. Maybe you're the type of person that takes your time in writing. Maybe you're the type of person that does things at the last minute, which we don't encourage you to do so. But usually you want to make sure that you've answered the question that is asking you. You can take as long as maybe a day, a week. And this is why we always ask you to start early. Or you could take within maybe hours in finishing those questions. Okay, there's no particular time in telling that has to be done, so be mindful of that. Kenneth is asking, can you discuss the negative topics in personal insight questions but still end off a positive note? Yes. I don't know how the questions that are given to you, maybe a challenge that you overcame at school. For example, maybe your school may have, or your community might have some violence, and you're affected by that, and you overcame that violence, making you focus on yourself and making sure that you do well in school. That is a positive spin on that. Just because you have a negative outside of your out of your community doesn't mean that you come out positive. I'll give you my example. I grew up in a place where basically students or my community was considered to be the mecca of gang world. The point is that what do I make out of that? Do I nearly fall into place, or do I merely avoid that and focus on what I need to do in order to move forward? But try not to be as negative as possible on your answers. Always spin it to the positive. Okay. There's a question here. I'm mostly struggling with how to start my answers. Do you have any advice? Yes. Have a recorder. Use your phone to record. Look at the question and answer it. Sometimes that'll help you. If you listen to yourself, what you wrote or what you said on a recorder, that'll give you an idea as to start. We also understand that it's very difficult for a lot of you to start because, again, it's all about you. So the best way to do that is that if you have a hard time with that, record yourself answering these questions, and then listen to them, and then put them on paper. That's the best way best suggestion I could tell you or give you. Okay. Juliamia, what is typically looked for the insight questions? What is typically looked for in the insight question? Again, going back to the idea that you've answered the question, that you're clear on your message, and that it's all about you. Avoid, again, writing about your parents, your counselors, your teachers. It has to be all about the I or me, not third person. Always write it by yourself. Okay? Think about that. Yesenia is asking, do you have any advice for the applicant struggling with an experience to write about? It depends on the experience. Again, what I suggest, Yesenia, what I just I mentioned earlier, look at the question, grab a recorder, record your answer, and then if you like what you hear, put it on paper. Okay? Again, it is very difficult as human beings to write about ourselves. So this is the best way for you to kind of get an idea for that. Okay? Luis Cisco is asking, should the essay be straightforward or should they have more narrative? Straightforward. Okay? Again, avoid creating a narrative in regards to setting up your answer. Make sure that you answer straight ahead. Do not veer from that. The questions are designed, once again, I'll mention to all of you, are designed to help us understand who the candidate is, who the applicant is, And we also want to make the applicant to be human. Okay. Questions asked. Luis is asking again. Again, going back to the idea of being straightforward, narrative, be straightforward on that. Okay. Sony's asking if I take an SAT with an essay before, then took the SAT without an essay and got a higher score, can I send a higher score, or am I forced to take the essay in that sitting to be able to send it? Okay, good question. Be mindful that the SATs or the ACT have to be taken with the writing or the essay. That has to be part of the one sitting. Okay, so if you take the ACT without the essay, guess what? And if you submit just the SAT without the essay, that basically disqualifies yourself from the process of admissions. We require that you have the essay portion to the SAT or the ACT, right? So be mindful of that. Elizabeth is asking, if I transfer from Oklahoma to California in March, will I be considered a resident by fall? That is a good question, and that's a registrar question that you need to ask. But usually, if you are, it's if your parents are also living with you. My understanding is it's 365 days plus one makes you a resident of California. So go ahead and look at that. But that's something, that question you also might want to ask of the registrar at the particular campus that you apply to, because I want to make sure that you're clear on that. And also, if you ask, and should I include my transcripts from my previous schools or the one that I'm graduating from? For the most part, the transcript that the high school you're graduating from will be sufficient, but it would not hurt to have those just in case the university asks for those other transcripts. So keep that, right? Lynn is asking, if you don't know if you're going to drop a class the next semester to report the class for the whole year. This is because I don't know if I'm getting an internship as a medical assistant. Do it at the time that you've dropped the class, okay? Because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So just hold on to the class. Once you drop it, then you make sure you notify us that you dropped that class. Question is it true that if you are in the top of your high school senior class and apply to UC schools that you are guaranteed acceptance to at least one UC? The idea that if you're the top 9%, you will be given access to the University of California only if space is available. Okay, be mindful of that. It is important for you that you understand that applying to the UCs, this is why we tell students that you should apply to the UCs that you think should be in your radar. But if for some reason you don't get accepted to those campuses, okay, it is very important that you understand there is a possibility that you may not be offered admissions to another campus just because space is not available. So what we tell students for the most part when applying to the UC system, make sure that you apply smart. Okay, think about the major that you're going into, think about the university that you're applying to, and do they have that major? And if they don't, then that particular campus should not be in your radar as far as applying to those campuses. Okay. All right. The question is, all right, I maintain a 4.1 till now. If I receive lower grades than normal, for example, if I kept straight A's, but now I fear that I'll be getting a couple of B's, will that impact my admissions? Not at all. Keep in mind that we try to make sure that we keep our integrity in place when we offer students a admissions to a campus, but we also want to make sure that you do well in those courses. For the most part, we don't want you to get any deficient grades because that'll basically affect your admissions to a campus. Okay, so keep that in mind. But at the same time, if you look at other campuses, that is a question that you might want to ask of those campuses. For the most part, we want to make sure that we keep those individuals applied to our campus that do well at the end of their senior year. The question is, okay, so I know that we're almost out of time here. Just a reminder that we do have a presentation. We did have a lot of people attending tonight, and I want to thank you for that. We appreciate you attending our webinar, and I hope that you got something out of that. And we did have a lot of people, but we do want to make sure that we offer you another opportunity. We have 2 more sessions, one on November 20th and on November 30th. Okay, so so think about that, and then again, we want to make sure that we thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Dustin. If you want, you're more welcome to kind of close this up if you want to, or do you want to continue with some of these questions?
Hi, Juan Carlos. How about we can you take maybe 3 more questions?
Sure, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Okay, so Yusen is asking, oh, yeah, I already answered that question. There's a question here, is if my green card is pending, what should I put for my visa? And would I be considered a resident or not? I've attended all 4 years of high schools in California. Okay, this is a question for the registrar. I don't have the ins and outs of that. For the most part, you go ahead and apply. And you know what? It'll be good for us for you to send that question to us directly, to our office of admissions@ucmerced.edu, and then we'll forward it to the appropriate people. I don't want to say things on here that I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I want to make sure that we give you the correct answer, and we can forward this question to our specialist. Okay? Thank you. For the question is what income usually qualifies for EAOP? Our EAOP works a little bit different than that of the CSUs, so I want to start with that. The EOPs at the University of California is more of a support system, not necessarily a financial support. It's more of a, do you need tutoring? Do you need support on campus? That's basically what it is. So there's no necessarily an income qualification for that. It's more of a support system for that. Okay. Now, question is here, if I fail a college course in high school, does it affect your chances of being accepted to the UC University? Okay. All of the courses you've taken in high school will be addressed in calculating your GPA. And it depends where your GPA lands. That's the way we're going to be evaluating you and determine whether that course is going to be something. Now, if it's a transferable course, it might have a GPA implication. If it's not transferable, that might have a different implication as well. Okay. And I'm going to answer the last question from Crystal. Do UCs look for applications from a holistic approach or a point system largely based on GPA and SAT? So Crystal, that's a good question. The University of California, as you already know, every campus does the business different. At UC Merced, we do a holistic review, okay? It is important for you to contact the other campuses to determine how they evaluate their applications, okay? I want to thank you again, and I want to thank you for all of you attending tonight's webinar. And I hope that if you have any more questions, please do so. Oh, one more thing, my apologies. Before we close tonight, for those of you who are affected by the fires here in California, we are going to give you an extension. Just make sure that you follow there is a message that's going out to all the students who are applying to our campus. One of the main factors that in order for you to consider for an extension, if you're part of the experiencing fires, is you have to create a UC account. That's the first part. But then you follow up with the other stuff that's required from you. For example, let me get my information correctly for you. Create a UC account, UC application account, and then let me see. Hold on a second. So create your UC application account for fall of 2019 at universityofcalifornia.edu. Apply. Email your extension request to ucinfo@applyucsupport.net with the following subject line: extension request, weather/fire event. Your emails should include the following: email address you use to open your application account, first and last name as it appears on your UC application, and the reasons for your request. Okay, so you need those things on there. And also, now you can continue to work on your application. Within the 5-6 working days, you will receive an email noting the application mission instruction. An application fee waiver will be automatically applied to your account and will cover the cost for your 4 campuses. Please know that your request must include all the email addresses associated with your application. Okay, so be mindful of that.
All right, everyone. We just want to thank you again for attending tonight's webinar. We had a lot of people show up. Thank you again, Juan Carlos, for your time and all the panelists' time tonight. Again, if you'd like to sign up for a future webinar, you can do that at admissions.ucmerced.edu/webinars. You're also welcome to email us directly at admissions@ucmerced.edu. Thank you again, and have a good evening.
Thank you.